They called it mercy when they threw the broken human child into the Void Worm's lair. The Galactic Council believed they were ending her suffering quickly, cleanly. After all, what could a crippled 13-year-old girl possibly do against a creature that had devoured entire star fleets? But the Council had never learned the most dangerous truth about humans. We don't break the same way other species do. Sometimes when you think you're watching us die, you're actually watching us transform into something the universe has never seen before. Zara Chen was about to teach them that lesson in the most spectacular way possible. The transport ship's hull groaned as it descended through the toxic atmosphere of Zirian Prime, the prison world where the Galactic Council sent problems they wanted to forget. In the cargo hold, 13-year-old Zara Chen pressed her face against the small porthole, watching alien storms rage across a landscape that looked like the surface of hell itself. "Still looking outside, little broken bird?" Ambassador Crix's voice slithered through the speakers. The Vorthak diplomat had made it clear from the moment Earth surrendered that he considered humans barely more than livestock. "Enjoying your last view of the universe?" Zara didn't answer. Her legs, paralyzed since birth, meant nothing here. What mattered was the fire burning in her chest, the same fire that had gotten her parents executed for seditious behavior when they refused to hand over Earth's quantum research to the Council. The ship touched down with a violent shudder. Through the reinforced walls, Zara could hear something massive moving outside, something that made the very ground tremble. The other prisoners, hardened criminals from a dozen different species, had gone completely silent. "Ah, she comes to greet us," Crix announced with obvious pleasure. "The Void Worm, magnificent creature, she's consumed the last 3 ships' worth of prisoners. Entirely. Not even bones left behind." The cargo doors hissed open and Zara's breath caught. The dragon was nothing like the fairy tale creatures from Earth's old stories. This thing was a living nightmare of crystalline scales and void black flesh, easily 200 meters long. Its 6 eyes burned like dying stars, and when it breathed, reality itself seemed to ripple around the edges of its nostrils. "The Council's mercy is boundless." Crix continued his speech as automated systems began pushing prisoners toward the exit. "Instead of spacing you immediately, we give you a chance. Survive 1 hour with the Void Worm, and you earn your freedom." Of course, no one has ever lasted more than 3 minutes. Zara was the last to be moved, her wheelchair's anti-grav systems humming as they carried her down the ramp. The other prisoners were already scattering, some trying to hide behind the jagged rock formations, others attempting to fight with makeshift weapons. It was pointless. The dragon moved like liquid lightning, and within seconds, half of them were simply gone. Not killed, but consumed so completely it was as if they had never existed. "Magnificent," Crix breathed, watching through the ship's external cameras. "And now for the entertainment. The broken human child. I wonder if she'll cry before the end?" But Zara wasn't crying. She was studying the creature with the same intense focus she'd once used to decode quantum algorithms. The dragon had paused in its feeding, those star-bright eyes fixed on her. There was something in its gaze that didn't match the mindless predator everyone believed it to be. Intelligence. Ancient, alien, but undeniably present. "Hello?" she said quietly, her voice carrying across the barren landscape. "You're not just a monster, are you?" The Void Worm tilted its massive head, and for a moment the air between them seemed to shimmer. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly inside her mind, bypassing her ears entirely. "Child of the third sun's children. You see truly." Zara's heart hammered, but she forced herself to remain calm. "The Council thinks you're their executioner." "But you're a prisoner too, aren't you?" The dragon's laugh was like the sound of space itself tearing. "For 3,000 of your years, I have devoured their unwanted. They believe they have tamed me with their neural inhibitors and quantum cages. They do not know that I allow it." "Why?" Zara whispered. "Because I wait. I have been waiting for one who could see past the deception, one who could help me break these chains." The creature's eyes narrowed, focusing on her with laser intensity. "Tell me, small one, what did your people call those who faced impossible odds with nothing but their will?" "Heroes," Zara said without hesitation. "Heroes. The void worm lowered its great head until they were almost touching. Your people have a phrase. Perhaps you know it? Zara smiled, understanding flooding through her. Humanity, fuck yeah. Indeed. The dragon's mental voice carried what might have been approval. Now listen carefully, young hero. The neural inhibitor embedded in my skull can only be removed by someone with hands small enough to reach the trigger mechanism and knowledge deep enough to understand quantum lock algorithms. The Council has been very careful to ensure no one with those qualifications ever reaches this place. Except they just did, Zara breathed, looking down at her small hands, thinking of all those years studying quantum physics alongside her parents. Except they just did. The dragon agreed. But know this, if you help me, there is no going back. The Council will hunt you to the edges of the galaxy. Your life will never be simple or safe again. Zara thought about her parents, about Earth under Council occupation, about every human being forced to bow their heads to alien masters who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. I wasn't planning on simple anyway, she said. The dragon's approval washed over her like a warm wave. Then we begin. But first, you must understand what you are truly choosing. I am not just any dragon child. I am the last of the void worms, the species that once ruled the galactic core. My kind built the first stargates, created the quantum technologies your people barely comprehend. We were the apex of civilization, until the Council's ancestors decided the galaxy was too small for two dominant species. Zara's blood chilled. They committed genocide, they tried. They succeeded with all but me, and I have spent 3 millennia planning their extinction in return. The creature's mental voice grew darker, tinged with an anger that had been burning for thousands of years. When I am free, I will reclaim my people's legacy. I will tear down every council world, every station, every ship. The galaxy will burn until only justice remains. And humans? Zara asked quietly. Humans, the dragon considered, interest me. You are the first species in 1,000 years to resist the Council's initial occupation, the first to require actual force rather than submission through intimidation. You think in ways that remind me of my own people, creative, stubborn, willing to fight against impossible odds. I believe humanity and I can reach an understanding. Above them, Ambassador Crix's voice boomed from the transport's speakers. How amusing. The broken child thinks she can speak with the beast. Perhaps we should... The void worm's roar cut him off, a sound that shattered several of the ship's external sensors and sent sonic booms rolling across the landscape. Enough! The mental voice was no longer directed solely at Zara. I grow tired of the Vorthak's prattling. You can hear him? Zara asked. I can hear everything within 100 kilometers when I choose to, including the conversation he is having right now with his security chief about whether to simply blast you from orbit instead of waiting for me to devour you. Zara's mind raced. How long do we have? Crix has decided to wait exactly 57 more minutes before orbital bombardment. He wishes to ensure I have time to play with my food for the recording he plans to submit to the Council as proof of your destruction. Then we'd better hurry. Zara guided her chair closer to the dragon's massive head. Show me where this inhibitor is. The void worm lowered itself until its head rested on the ground beside her. Behind my left primary eye, there is a scale that appears solid but is actually a quantum construct. Phase your hand through it. Yes, you will need to use quantum manipulation, something I suspect your people taught you. And you will find the control node. Zara closed her eyes, remembering her parents' lessons about quantum states and probability manipulation. It had seemed like theoretical physics back then. Now it might be the key to saving not just her own life, but possibly every human in the galaxy. She placed her hand against the indicated scale and felt the strange sensation of her fingers passing through solid matter as she shifted them into quantum flux. Inside, her fingertips touched something small, warm and pulsing with contained energy. I feel it, she whispered. Good. Now, the algorithm. The lock requires a sequence that proves understanding of 11-dimensional mathematics. I will share the knowledge directly, but be warned. Your human mind was not designed to process information at this level. The experience will be intense. Do it. The dragon's consciousness touched hers, and Zara's world exploded into sensation and knowledge. She saw the universe as the voidworms had seen it, not as empty space punctuated by matter, but as a vast web of interconnected quantum threads, each one singing with mathematical precision. She understood for one impossible moment how space and time were merely different notes in the same cosmic symphony. Her fingers moved without conscious direction, inputting the sequence that had been burned into her mind. The device clicked softly, then began to hum with increasing intensity. "Step back," the dragon warned. Quickly, Zara reversed her chair just as the inhibitor exploded in a cascade of sparks and quantum energy. The dragon's roar this time was different, not pain or anger, but pure triumphant fury. "Free!" The mental voice was so powerful it nearly knocked Zara unconscious. "After 3,000 years, I am finally free." The void worm rose to its full height, and Zara saw it clearly for the first time without the dampening effects of the neural inhibitor. It was impossibly beautiful and terrifying, scales shifting through colors that had no names, energy crackling between its claws like captured lightning. Above them, alarms began shrieking from the transport ship. "Impossible!" Crix's voice was no longer arrogant, but edged with panic. "The neural inhibitor shows complete failure." How could a crippled human child? The dragon's laugh cut through his words like a blade. When it spoke aloud this time, its voice was a harmony of tones that made reality itself vibrate. "Because, fool, you never understood what you captured." The void worm's eyes fixed on the transport ship, and Zara could see quantum energy building around its maw. "You thought you had tamed a simple beast. You never realized you had imprisoned the last heir to the Vithara dynasty, keeper of the stellar gates, master of the quantum realms." The ship's weapon systems began powering up, but the dragon was already moving, not attacking, something far more impressive. Its claws traced patterns in the air, and space itself began to fold. Zara watched in awe as the transport ship was suddenly wrapped in a bubble of twisted space-time, trapped like an insect in amber. "Now then," the dragon said, settling back down beside Zara with movements that spoke of infinite patience. "We have approximately 56 minutes before this fool's superiors realize something has gone wrong. That gives us time to discuss the future." Zara found her voice. "What future?" The void worm's smile revealed teeth that gleamed like polished starlight. "Why, the one where we bring the Galactic Council to its knees, liberate your people, and remind the universe that some fires burn too bright to ever be extinguished." Crix's panicked shouting could be heard faintly from the trapped ship, but Zara ignored it. She was looking up at her new ally, this ancient creature of impossible power who had waited 3,000 years for someone exactly like her to arrive. "So what do we do first?" she asked. The dragon's laugh this time was warm, almost fond. "First, young hero, we give you a gift. You cannot fight a galactic war from a wheelchair no matter how advanced. And I have certain capabilities that your council masters never suspected." "You mean you can heal my legs?" "I can do far more than that." The dragon's eyes began to glow brighter. "I can awaken the potential that lies dormant in your species' genetic code. The same potential my people saw when we first visited your world 50,000 years ago and decided that humanity might one day prove worthy successors to our legacy." Zara's breath caught. "You knew about humans before the council? Child, who do you think taught your ancestors to look at the stars and dream of walking among them?" The revelation hit Zara like a physical blow. 50,000 years ago, when humanity was barely more than scattered tribes scratching out survival on Earth, the void worms had been there. Watching, teaching, guiding. "The cave paintings," she whispered, her mind racing through half-remembered history lessons. "The ones that show figures with wings teaching humans to use fire, to forge metal, to read the stars." "Not wings," the dragon corrected gently. "Energy membranes. Your ancestors' primitive art could not adequately capture our true forms, so they depicted us as they could understand us. As beings of power who came from the sky. Around them, the landscape of Zirian Prime seemed to fade into irrelevance. Even the trapped transport ship with its screaming Vorthak ambassador became background noise. This moment felt like the pivot point upon which the entire future of the galaxy would turn. But if your people helped create human civilization, Zara said, struggling to process the implications, why didn't the Council know? Why weren't we protected when they invaded Earth? The Void Worm's expression grew dark, ancient pain flickering in its star-bright eyes. Because by the time the Council reached your world, they believed my people extinct. They had hunted us for millennia, systematically destroying every trace of our influence throughout the galaxy. Earth appeared to be simply another primitive world ripe for conquest, with no obvious connection to the vanished Vithera. They were wrong, spectacularly wrong. The dragon's mental laugh held grim satisfaction. Your people carry genetic modifications that my ancestors installed over centuries of careful guidance. Enhanced neural plasticity, improved quantum perception capabilities, resistance to standard psionic manipulation, dormant until activated but present in roughly 12% of your population. Zara felt a chill of understanding. My parents, their ability to understand quantum physics so intuitively, their resistance to Council interrogation techniques. Your entire family line carries the modifications in strong concentration. The Council executed your parents not just for their defiance, but because something deep in their scanning protocols flagged them as potentially dangerous. They simply didn't understand why. The transport ship's weapons systems suddenly powered down. Through the quantum bubble containing it, Zara could see Crix frantically working at his control panels, trying to break free of the spatial distortion. His weapons cannot function within the fold, the dragon explained absently. The energy requirements for maintaining coherent particle streams through twisted space-time are beyond their technology. We have perhaps an hour before his automatic distress beacon reaches the nearest Council patrol ship. Is that enough time for what I need to do to you? More than sufficient. For what we will need to do afterward? The dragon's smile was anticipatory. We will need to be considerably more creative about our timeline. The creature lowered its great head until it rested on the ground beside Zara's chair. Are you prepared to accept your inheritance, young heir of Earth? I must warn you, the transformation will change you in ways that can never be reversed. You will gain capabilities that mark you as fundamentally different from baseline humanity. The Council will never see you as merely human again, and neither will your own people. Zara thought about the choice before her. She could refuse, ask to be taken somewhere safe, try to live out a quiet life in hiding while the Council continued to grind her people under their heel. It would be reasonable, sensible even. It would also be cowardice. My parents didn't raise me to be safe, she said firmly. They raised me to be human, and humans don't abandon each other when things get difficult. The dragon's approval radiated warmth, spoken like a true daughter of the third son. Very well. Place your hand here against my primary neural interface scale. Zara reached out and pressed her palm against the indicated spot. The scale was warm, almost fever-hot, and she could feel energy humming beneath its surface. The process will awaken the dormant genetic sequences throughout your body, the dragon explained. Your legs will heal, yes, but that is merely the beginning. Your neural architecture will expand to accommodate quantum perception on a conscious level. Your muscle density will increase by roughly 300%. Your bones will develop a crystalline matrix that makes them nearly unbreakable. Most importantly, you will gain the ability to interface directly with Vithara technology. What does that mean exactly? It means, child, that you will be able to command ships that can fold space like paper, weapons that can crack planets, and defense systems that can turn aside starkiller weapons. It means you will carry within yourself the power to reshape the balance of galactic civilization. The scale beneath her hand grew warmer. It also means the Council will fear you more than they have ever feared anything in their existence. They will throw everything they have at destroying you, because your very existence proves that their genocide failed. Are you certain this is the path you choose? Zara thought about every human on Earth forced to live under Council occupation. She thought about children growing up believing that humanity was naturally inferior, that subservience was their proper place in the galaxy. She thought about her parents who had died rather than surrender the secrets that might give their people a fighting chance. I'm certain. The dragon's consciousness touched hers, and suddenly, Zara could feel every cell in her body beginning to change. It started as a warm tingling in her legs, the first sensation she had ever felt below her waist, but rapidly spread throughout her entire nervous system. Her vision suddenly expanded beyond the normal human spectrum. She could see the quantum energy patterns flowing through the dragon's body like living light. She could perceive the gravitational distortions around the trapped transport ship as visible ripples in spacetime. Most remarkably, she could see the vast network of quantum tunnels that connected this star system to every other inhabited world in the galaxy. "The stargates," she gasped. "I can see them all, as my people designed you to." The transformation was accelerating now, and Zara could feel her legs responding as new neural pathways formed to replace the damaged ones. Every major population center in the galaxy is connected by the tunnel network. From any gate, you can reach any other gate within hours rather than years. The Council believes they control this system, but they only understand how to use the surface functions. Zara tried to stand and found herself rising smoothly from her chair. Her legs were not just healed. They felt stronger than they had any right to be, thrumming with barely contained power. "How do I look?" she asked, then immediately felt foolish for caring about appearances at a moment like this. The dragon's amusement rippled through their connection. "See for yourself." A section of the creature's crystalline scales reconfigured itself into a mirror-smooth surface. Zara stared at her reflection and barely recognized herself. She had grown several inches taller, her limbs now showing the lean muscle definition of a trained athlete. Her eyes had acquired flecks of silver that seemed to shift and move like mercury. Most unsettling of all, her skin now showed faint patterns of lines that resembled circuit traces, visible just below the surface. "The dermal modifications will allow you to interface with Vithara control systems through direct contact," the dragon explained. "They also provide enhanced resistance to energy weapons and environmental hazards. I look like I'm part machine. You are part machine, in a sense. The most sophisticated biological machine in the galaxy, designed by a species that had been perfecting biotechnology for millions of years before your son was born." The dragon's tone became more serious. "But you are also still human, Zara Chen, enhanced, modified, but still carrying the core traits that made my people believe your species was worth saving. That stubborn refusal to accept defeat, that willingness to sacrifice for others, that beautiful, terrible creativity that turns the impossible into the inevitable." A new alarm started screaming from the transport ship. Through the quantum bubble, Zara could see Crix gesturing frantically at his instruments. "He's detected a Council patrol ship entering the system," the dragon informed her. "Estimated arrival time is 47 minutes. We need to leave soon if we're to avoid a direct confrontation." "Leave and go where?" The dragon's smile was predatory. "To reclaim my birthright and yours. There is a world at the galaxy's edge, officially listed as uninhabitable due to quantum storms and spatial anomalies. The Council avoids it completely, which makes it perfect for our purposes. What's special about it? It is Vithkala, the hidden forge world where my people built their greatest weapons and stored their most dangerous technologies. Everything we need to begin building a force capable of challenging the Council's hegemony." Zara looked around at the blasted landscape of Zirian Prime, then back at the trapped transport ship containing her would-be executioners. A wild idea began forming in her mind. "Before we go," she said slowly, "I think we should send a message." The dragon tilted its head. "What manner of message?" "The kind that lets the Council know their worst nightmare just came true." Zara walked closer to the spatial bubble containing the transport. "Lower the fold just enough for me to speak with him." "Child, that would allow him to fire upon you." "No, it wouldn't." Zara's smile was sharp-edged with newfound confidence. "Because you're going to give me a shield generator. Something that will make their weapons look like toys." The dragon studied her for a long moment, then made a sound that might have been laughter. "You truly are your parents' daughter. Very well." One of the dragon's claws touched the ground, and quantum energy flowed from it into a complex pattern carved in the rock. The pattern flared with light, then condensed into a small device that looked like jewelry made from crystallized starlight. "A personal shield projector," the dragon explained. "It will stop anything short of a direct hit from a planet-killer weapon. Simply touch the center crystal to activate it." Zara picked up the device and clipped it to her shirt. Then she walked to the edge of the spatial bubble and made a gesture for the dragon to lower its barrier. The fold space collapsed with a whisper of displaced air. Immediately, every weapon on the transport ship swiveled toward Zara, charging sounds indicating full power. Ah, the broken child returns. Crix's voice boomed from the ship's speakers. Have you come to beg for mercy? Perhaps we can reach an accommodation before my reinforcements arrive. I've come to deliver a message, Zara said calmly. She touched the crystal on her shield projector and a faint shimmer of energy surrounded her. Fire your weapons. What? You heard me. Take your best shot. Crix's confusion was audible in his voice. You wish to die? How disappointing. I had hoped for more entertainment. The transport's main gun fired, a concentrated burst of plasma that could have melted through a meter of reinforced steel. The energy bolt struck Zara's shield and simply vanished, absorbed completely with barely a flicker of the protective field. The silence that followed was profound. Impossible, Crix whispered. What are you? Zara's voice carried clearly across the space between them, enhanced by the quantum modifications to her vocal cords. I'm the thing your people should have killed 50,000 years ago when you had the chance. I'm proof that the Vithara legacy lives on, and I'm the beginning of the end for your precious council. She paused, letting that sink in. But mostly, Ambassador Crix, I'm just a human being who's had enough of your species' arrogance. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take a message back to your masters. Tell them that Zara Chen, daughter of Earth, heir to the Vithara, sends her regards. Tell them that their genocide was incomplete. Tell them that we remember what they did to our teachers, and we're going to make them pay for every single death. You're insane! Crix's voice cracked with strain. Even if what you claim is true, you're one child. The Council commands millions of ships, trillions of soldiers. And 50,000 years ago, the Council's ancestors thought the same thing about the Vithara. Zara's smile was cold as deep space. How did that work out for them? Behind her, the void worm rose to its full height, wings spreading to block out the alien sun. Tell your masters, it spoke in a voice like controlled thunder, that Sovereign Vithalar, last of the stellar throne, has returned to reclaim what was stolen. Tell them that the long war begins again, and this time they will not catch us unprepared. The transport ship's engines ignited suddenly, lifting off with desperate speed. Crix had clearly heard enough. Was that wise? Zara asked as they watched the ship disappear into the toxic atmosphere. Won't they just send everything they have after us? They will try, the dragon agreed. But they don't know where we're going, and by the time they mobilize a proper response, we will already be long gone. Besides, its mental voice carried dark amusement. I want them to know we're coming. Fear will make them act rashly, and rash actions create opportunities for those patient enough to exploit them. So what now? The dragon extended one massive wing toward the ground. Now, young heir, we go home. Climb aboard, and I'll show you what it means to truly fly. Zara approached the offered wing without hesitation. As she climbed onto the dragon's back, settling into what seemed to be a natural riding position between its shoulder blades, she felt the neural interface connections activate automatically. Suddenly, she wasn't just riding the dragon. She was connected to it, sharing its perceptions, feeling the quantum energy flowing through its massive body. Ready? The dragon asked. Ready. The void worm launched itself into the air with a power that defied physics. They rose through the atmosphere in seconds, breaking free of Zirian Prime's gravity well as easily as stepping off a curb. Around them, space opened up in all its terrible beauty. Stars scattered like diamonds across black velvet. There, the dragon said, indicating a particular section of sky where space seemed to ripple strangely. The hidden gate to Vithkala. No council ship has passed through it in 3,000 years. As they approached the spatial anomaly, Zara could see it more clearly through her enhanced vision. It wasn't just a gate. It was a masterwork of quantum engineering. A tunnel through folded space that connected to a destination thousands of light years away. How long will the journey take? With the gates, perhaps 10 minutes. Without them, it would take your fastest ships 300 years. They plunged into the quantum tunnel, and reality became a kaleidoscope of impossible colors and sensations. Zara felt her consciousness expand, touching briefly on the vast network of gates that connected every inhabited system in the galaxy. For one overwhelming moment, she could sense the presence of billions of lives scattered across thousands of worlds, including Earth, including humans. "I can feel them," she whispered. "My people. They're still fighting, still resisting." "As we knew they would," the dragon replied. "Your species does not surrender easily. That is both your greatest strength and your greatest vulnerability." The tunnel spat them out into normal space, above a world that took Zara's breath away. Vithkala hung before them like a jewel, its surface covered in structures that seemed to blend technology and biology into something beyond either. Massive spires reached into space, connected by bridges of crystallized energy. Cities that looked like they had been grown rather than built, sprawled across continents covered in what appeared to be metallic forest. "It's beautiful. It was the crown jewel of our empire," the dragon said softly. "Here, my people created wonders that would seem like magic to any other species, weapons that could reshape star systems, ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, life extension technologies that made us functionally immortal. What happened to it all? When the Council's assault fleets found our core worlds, we had perhaps 6 hours warning. My people loaded the most critical technologies onto automated systems and sent them here, to the one world the Council had never discovered. Then they fought to the last to ensure the evacuation ships escaped. They descended through the atmosphere, and Zara could see that the planet was far from dead. Automated systems were clearly still functioning, maintaining the massive structures and keeping the cities in pristine condition despite millennia of abandonment. "The AI caretakers have been waiting all this time for a Vithara to return," the dragon explained. "They will accept you as well, once they scan your genetic modifications and confirm your status as an heir." They landed on what appeared to be a vast plaza surrounded by towers that stretched beyond the horizon. The moment the dragon's feet touched the crystalline surface, lights began appearing throughout the city. Gentle chimes rang through the air, and Zara could feel something vast and ancient awakening around them. A voice spoke, seemingly from everywhere at once, in a language that sounded like music made from mathematics. But somehow, Zara understood every word. "Welcome home, sovereign Vithalar. Welcome, heir of the third sun. The forges await your commands. What is your will?" The dragon looked at Zara, and she could see 3,000 years of patient planning crystallizing into this single moment. "Begin," it said simply. "Begin everything." The city came alive around them with a symphony of light and sound that spoke of technologies beyond human comprehension. Towers that had stood dormant for millennia began cycling through configurations, their crystalline surfaces shifting between states of matter as if solid and energy were merely suggestions rather than laws. The very air thrummed with power as systems that had waited patiently for 3,000 years finally activated. Zara stood in the center of the plaza, trying to process the magnitude of what she was witnessing. This wasn't just a city, it was a technological ecosystem that made the most advanced council installations look like primitive cave paintings. "The caretaker AI is performing a full system diagnostic," the dragon explained, settling beside her with movements that were somehow both massive and graceful. "When the Vithara evacuated, they programmed the automated systems to maintain everything in perfect condition until one of us returned. Every weapon, every ship, every technological wonder my people ever created. Above them, the sky began to shift as orbital platforms emerged from stealth fields that had hidden them for millennia. Each structure was the size of a small moon, bristling with energy weapons and spatial manipulation devices that hurt to look at directly. Zara counted at least 20 of them becoming visible, and suspected many more remained hidden. "How much firepower are we talking about?" she asked, her tactical instincts beginning to engage as the full scope of their resources became clear. "Enough to sterilize every council world simultaneously," the dragon replied with satisfaction. My people were thorough in their preparations for revenge. They knew that if any Vithara survived the genocide, we would need the tools to ensure it could never happen again. The caretaker AI's voice echoed through the plaza again, this time addressing Zara directly. Heir of the third son, your genetic pattern indicates significant quantum modification potential. Do you wish to access the enhancement archives? What would that involve? Zara asked, looking to the dragon for guidance. The final stage of your transformation, it explained. The modifications I gave you awakened your dormant capabilities, but the enhancement archives contain the accumulated knowledge and abilities of every Vithara who ever lived. Think of it as downloading the collective experience of a million-year-old civilization directly into your consciousness. The implications were staggering. Would I still be human afterward? The dragon considered this carefully. You would be human in every way that matters. Your values, your emotional core, your essential identity would remain unchanged. But you would also carry within yourself knowledge that no human has ever possessed. You would understand physics that your species won't discover for another 1,000 years. You would know battle strategies developed over galactic conflicts that lasted centuries. You would have access to technologies that could reshape matter at the subatomic level. Zara walked to the center of the plaza, where a circular depression had begun to glow with soft blue light. Something deep in her consciousness recognized the pattern, understood that this was an interface designed specifically for someone like her, part human, part something greater. The Council fleet that's undoubtedly looking for us. How long do we have before they find this place? The quantum storms around this system make it nearly undetectable, the dragon replied. But Crix's message will have reached them by now. They know you're alive, they know I'm free, and they know we're working together. They'll mobilize everything they have. The creature's eyes gleamed with anticipation. I estimate we have perhaps 3 days before they begin systematic sweeps of every star system in this sector. Then I need every advantage I can get. Zara stepped into the circular interface. Do it. The moment her feet touched the glowing surface, the world exploded into pure information. Knowledge flowed into her mind like a torrent, not painful, but overwhelming in its intensity. She saw the rise of Vithara civilization from their origins as a spacefaring species to their eventual dominance over half the galaxy. She watched the first contact with the Council's predecessor species, the gradual deterioration of relations, as it became clear that two apex civilizations could not peacefully coexist in the same galaxy. She experienced the long war from the perspective of Vithara commanders, felt their growing desperation as the Council's overwhelming numbers began to tell. She witnessed the final days of the Vithara homeworld, saw the last survivors loading their most precious technologies onto evacuation ships while knowing they would never see their home again. But more than just history, she absorbed understanding. The mathematical principles behind quantum manipulation became as intuitive as breathing. Tactical doctrines developed over centuries of warfare integrated themselves into her thought processes. Most importantly, she gained access to the Stellar Archive, a complete database of every world, every species, every potential ally or threat in the known galaxy. When the download finally ended, Zara found herself lying on the smooth surface of the plaza, the dragon's massive head hovering protectively above her. And maybe they are playing devil stations. She sat up slowly, marveling at how different everything looked now. And she could see the quantum energy flows that connected every technological system in the city. She could perceive the gravitational currents that moved between star systems like a vast invisible ocean. How do you feel? The dragon asked gently. Like myself, Zara replied, surprised by the truth of it, but also like someone who just learned that everything I thought I knew about the universe was barely the introduction to the real course. She stood and found her balance immediately, her enhanced body responding to her will with perfect precision. I can see the pathways now, the connections between every major world in the galaxy. And I can see something else. The Council isn't as unified as they pretend to be. The dragon's approval radiated warmth. Explain. Zara closed her eyes, accessing the tactical analysis capabilities that now felt as natural as her own memories. The Council is made up of 12 major species and roughly 40 minor ones, but they're not equals. It's a hierarchy based on military strength and economic power. The Vorthak, like Crix, are middle tier at best. The real power belongs to the hegemony core species, the Zephian, the Mordoon, and the Kythera, correct? And the significance of this? The minor species are kept in line through a combination of fear and economic dependency. But that also means they have no particular loyalty to the Council beyond self-preservation. If we could demonstrate that the Council can be defeated, if we could offer them a better alternative, they might be convinced to change sides, the dragon finished with evident pride. Now you think like a Vithara. War is not just about superior firepower. It is about understanding the political realities that bind your enemies together and finding ways to exploit those bonds. A soft chime drew their attention to the sky, where one of the orbital platforms was descending toward the plaza. As it drew closer, Zara could see it was not just a weapons platform but a massive construction facility. Its lower sections opening to reveal manufacturing bays that could have assembled entire star destroyers. The war forges, the dragon explained. Automated systems that can create anything from personal weapons to planet-killer ships. They have been fabricating new technologies for 3,000 years, constantly improving on the designs my people left behind. The platform settled onto the plaza with barely a whisper, its manufacturing bays extending toward them like the petals of some enormous metal flower. Robotic systems immediately began emerging, carrying devices that gleamed with barely contained energy. The caretakers had prepared a welcome gift, the dragon nodded with amusement. Personal equipment suitable for an heir preparing for war. The robots presented their offerings with movements that somehow conveyed deep respect. Zara examined each item, her enhanced understanding allowing her to grasp their functions immediately. There was armor that would make her effectively immune to any personal weapon the Council possessed, a handheld device that could manipulate gravitational fields, and most remarkably, a crystalline interface that would allow her to command Vithara ships through direct mental connection. This is just the beginning, she said, understanding flooding through her as she touched the interface crystal. The real question is what we build our strategy around. Do we strike at military targets, try to liberate human colonies, or do we go straight for the Council's leadership? The dragon's smile was predatory. What would cause the most disruption to their operations? Zara closed her eyes and let the tactical analysis systems work through the possibilities. The answer came to her with crystalline clarity: their communication network. The Council controls an empire spanning thousands of star systems through instantaneous quantum communication relays. If we could take control of that network, we could coordinate their enemies while cutting them off from their own forces. The quantum web, the dragon agreed, based at the Nexus station in the Kelphara system. It is perhaps the most heavily defended installation in the galaxy, surrounded by defense platforms that could stop a fleet of 10,000 ships, but not something that could fold space around it. The dragon's laughter echoed across the plaza. Now you truly begin to understand the scope of your inheritance. Yes, with Vithara technology we could bypass their defenses entirely, but such an operation would require perfect timing and flawless execution. We would have perhaps minutes to seize control of the network before their reinforcements arrived. How many ships would we need? Ships? The dragon tilted its massive head. Child, you are thinking too conventionally. We need exactly one ship, but it must be the right ship. The platform above them suddenly reconfigured itself, and Zara felt her breath catch as something began emerging from its central bay. It was sleek and organic-looking, clearly built for a single pilot, but crackling with energy signatures that suggested capabilities beyond anything in the Council fleet. The Quantum Shard, the dragon explained. A prototype developed in the final days of the Vithara Empire. It exists partially outside normal space-time, making it effectively immune to conventional weapons. More importantly, it can phase through solid matter, including the hulls of enemy ships and space stations. Zara approached the craft, running her hands along its smooth surface. The moment she touched it, the ship's systems came alive, quantum interfaces activating as they recognized her genetic signature. She could feel the vessel's capabilities flowing into her consciousness. Faster than light travel without gates, weapons that could crack asteroids, and most remarkably, the ability to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. How soon can we leave? The ship is ready now, the dragon replied. But you will not be going alone. The caretakers have been constructing something special for me as well. A mobile command center that will allow me to coordinate our forces from anywhere in the galaxy. As if summoned by its words, another section of the plaza began to iris open, revealing a construction bay that dwarfed even the Warforge. From its depths rose something that made even the dragon look small. A ship that was more flying city than spacecraft, bristling with weapons and crowned with quantum communication arrays that could reach across the galaxy. The Stellar Throne, the dragon said with deep satisfaction. A command ship worthy of the last sovereign of the Vith era. Zara stared at the two vessels, understanding that this moment marked the point of no return. Once they left this world, there would be no hiding, no pretending to be anything other than what they had become. The Council would hunt them with everything they possessed, and the war for galactic freedom would begin in earnest. But as she looked up at the orbital platforms, at the city that stretched beyond the horizon, at the dragon who had waited 3,000 years for this day, she felt no fear, only a fierce anticipation that made her smile. When do we start? The dragon's mental voice carried an emotion that took her a moment to recognize. Hope, tempered by the hard wisdom of ages. We start by announcing our presence to the galaxy in a way that cannot be ignored or denied. The Council has built their empire on the belief that resistance is futile. We are going to prove them wrong. The communication network first. But not just to seize control, to broadcast a message to every world simultaneously. Every human colony, every oppressed species, every minor council member who has ever dreamed of freedom. We are going to tell them that the age of tyranny is ending. Zara climbed into the quantum shard's cockpit, feeling the ship's neural interfaces seamlessly connect with her enhanced nervous system. The sensation was indescribable, like suddenly having a body the size of a starship, every system responding to her thoughts as naturally as her own limbs. What's our time frame? The Nexus station is 6 hours away through the gate network. We'll need another 2 hours to penetrate their defenses and seize control. After that, we'll have perhaps 30 minutes before they realize what's happening and begin their counterstrike. And in those 30 minutes? The dragon's smile was fierce with anticipation. In those 30 minutes, young heir, we change the course of galactic history. We remind every oppressed world that freedom is not a privilege granted by tyrants, but a right claimed by the brave. We show them that resistance is not futile, it is inevitable. Zara felt the ship's engines warming up, reality beginning to bend around them as the quantum drive prepared to fold space. Then let's go wake up the galaxy. The last thing she saw before they entered the tunnel was the dragon ship rising alongside her, its hull gleaming with the light of activated weapon systems. They had waited 3,000 years for this moment. It was time to remind the Council why the Vithara had once been the most feared force in the galaxy, and why humanity might prove to be even more dangerous. The journey through the quantum tunnel network to the Kalthara system was unlike anything Zara had experienced, even with her enhanced perceptions. The quantum shard didn't just travel through folded space, it existed simultaneously in multiple dimensional layers, allowing it to phase between reality states at will. She could see the normal space-time around them, but also the quantum substrate beneath it, and the probability waves that determined what could and could not exist. Beside her in the tunnel, the dragon's command ship moved with predatory grace, its massive bulk somehow appearing both solid and ethereal as it shifted between dimensions. Through their neural link, she could feel the ancient creature's anticipation building to dangerous levels. Status report on the Nexus station. The dragon's voice resonated directly in her mind. Zara accessed the Stellar Archive, cross-referencing current intelligence with the tactical data flowing from their ship's sensors. Defensive grid consists of 42 primary weapon platforms, each one capable of vaporizing a dreadnought with a single shot. The station itself is protected by multi-layered energy shields that can absorb the full output of a star for approximately 18 minutes. And the garrison? 3 full Council battle fleets in permanent rotation, roughly 9,000 ships total, plus rapid response forces that can be called in from 6 nearby systems within 20 minutes. Zara paused, running probability calculations. By conventional assault, we'd need at least 50,000 ships to have a reasonable chance of success. The dragon's mental laughter was dark with satisfaction. Fortunate, then, that we are not conducting a conventional assault. How are your phasing systems performing? Zara checked the quantum shard's dimensional status, marveling at readings that should have been impossible. All systems optimal. I'm existing in 7 different probability states simultaneously right now. The Council's sensors shouldn't be able to detect us at all. Perfect. We'll emerge from the tunnel in normal space approximately 12 million kilometers from the station. Close enough to reach it quickly, far enough out to avoid their automated detection grids. The tunnel exit rushed toward them, and suddenly they were in normal space above a site that would have been impressive under any other circumstances. The Nexus station was a geometric impossibility made real. A crystalline structure the size of a small moon, surrounded by defense platforms that bristled with weapons capable of cracking planets. Energy streams flowed between the platforms like captured lightning, creating a defensive web that could theoretically stop any attack. Quantum communication array is active, Zara reported, studying the massive transmission equipment that crowned the station. I'm detecting data streams to approximately 8,000 individual star systems. They're coordinating traffic control, military communications, and economic data transfers for roughly half the galaxy. And in approximately 6 minutes, all of that will belong to us. The Dragon's command ship began cycling through preparations, weapon systems coming online with barely contained power. Are you ready, young heir? Zara felt the quantum shard responding to her intentions, its systems preparing for the most audacious infiltration in galactic history. Phase drive is optimal. Neural interfaces are fully synchronized. Weapons are charged and ready. Then begin. The quantum shard folded itself out of normal space-time, sliding between dimensions like a ghost made of crystallized thought. Through her enhanced perception, Zara could see the Council's defense grid as a web of energy barriers that existed only in 3-dimensional space. By operating in 7 dimensions simultaneously, she could simply step around them. The approach to the station took subjective hours but objective seconds. Time worked differently when you existed in multiple probability states, and Zara found herself grateful for the Vythera modifications that allowed her consciousness to process such conditions without fragmenting. She phased through the station's outer hull like it was made of mist, emerging inside what appeared to be a central command chamber. The room was vast, filled with control surfaces that pulsed with quantum energy. At its center, a massive holographic display showed the real-time status of every Council installation in the galaxy. Thousands of worlds, millions of ships, all coordinated through this single point. Council technicians moved through the chamber with practiced efficiency, most of them belonging to species Zara didn't recognize. Their equipment was impressive by the standards of most civilizations, but looked primitive compared to what she had seen on Vithkala. Time to change that. Zara materialized in normal space directly in front of the central control console. The nearest technician, an insectoid creature with 6 arms and compound eyes, looked up from his work and froze in complete confusion. Unauthorized personnel in, he began to say, then stopped as Zara's enhanced appearance registered. What are you? How did you get past the security grid? I'm humanity's answer to your species' arrogance, Zara replied calmly, placing her hand on the central interface. The station systems immediately recognized her genetic encoding and began transferring control to her neural implants. And I got here because your technology is 3,000 years out of date. Alarms began screaming throughout the station as the quantum communication array fell under her control. She could feel the data streams flowing through her consciousness. Status reports from thousands of Council installations, military deployment orders, economic coordination protocols. The sheer scope of information was overwhelming, but her enhanced neural architecture processed it all with mechanical precision. Security to command center, the insectoid technician was shouting into his communication device. Intruder alert. Unknown species has breached the primary control chamber. Zara barely heard him. She was busy taking control of the galaxy's most sophisticated communication network, bending it to her will with capabilities the Council had never imagined possible. Through the quantum array, she could reach every inhabited world in Council space simultaneously. But first, she had a more immediate priority. Dragon, she spoke through their neuralink. I'm in. Beginning system takeover now. Excellent. I detect Council response forces mobilizing. You have approximately 8 minutes before the first wave arrives. 8 minutes to seize control of an installation that coordinated half the galaxy's communications. Under normal circumstances, it would be impossible, but Zara was no longer operating under normal circumstances. She interfaced directly with the station's quantum core, her consciousness expanding into the vast network that connected thousands of star systems. The sensation was indescribable, like suddenly being aware of every conversation, every data transfer, every automated system in Council space. For a terrifying moment, she thought the sheer volume of information might overwhelm even her enhanced mind. Then her Vithara training kicked in, and she began to sort through the chaos with systematic precision. Military communications went to one partition of her consciousness, economic data to another. Most importantly, she identified the control protocols that governed emergency broadcasting across the entire network. System takeover at 60%, she reported. Council forces are trying to lock me out, but their encryption is laughably primitive. Through the station's sensors, she could see Council ships emerging from quantum tunnels all around them. Hundreds of vessels, growing to thousands as the minutes passed. Their commanders clearly understood that losing the Nexus station would be a catastrophic blow to Council authority. Takeover at 80%. Almost there. The technicians in the command center had given up trying to regain control and were now simply evacuating. Zara barely noticed them leaving. Her attention was focused on the delicate process of assuming control over systems that had been designed by a completely different technological paradigm. Takeover complete, she announced with satisfaction. The network is ours. Immediately, she activated the emergency broadcast protocols, overriding every communication channel in Council space. On thousands of worlds, billions of beings would suddenly find their normal programming interrupted by a signal that couldn't be blocked or ignored. Citizens of the galaxy, Zara began, her voice carrying across space to reach every inhabited world simultaneously. My name is Zara Chen, daughter of Earth, heir to the Vithara legacy. For too long you have lived under the tyranny of the Galactic Council, told that subjugation is the natural order of things. Today, that lie ends. Through the quantum network, she could feel the shockwaves of her words rippling across Council space. On thousands of worlds, beings were stopping their daily activities to listen to something that shouldn't have been possible. A successful attack on the heart of Council power. The Council built their empire on a foundation of fear and lies. They told you that resistance was futile, that their military might was absolute, but they never told you about the genocide they committed to build that empire. They never told you about the Vithara, an ancient civilization that once showed the galaxy what true freedom looked like. Zara could see Council forces closing in on the station now, over 5,000 ships in tight formation, their weapons charging for an assault that would obliterate the installation regardless of the cost. The Vitharar are not extinct, as the Council claimed. We have returned, and we bring with us the tools to break the chains that bind you. But freedom cannot be given. It must be claimed. On every world where beings dream of liberty, the time has come to rise. She paused, accessing the tactical systems of the quantum shard. The Council fleet was almost in weapons range now. To my fellow humans scattered across the galaxy, your people have never stopped fighting. Your spirit has inspired others to remember what courage looks like. Today, that courage will light a fire that burns across the stars. The lead Council ships opened fire, their weapons striking the station's shields in a display of force that lit up space like a small sun. But the shields held, reinforced by technology the attackers couldn't understand. To every species forced to kneel before Council authority, your freedom awaits. Rise up. Fight back. Show them that the galaxy belongs to all of us, not just those with the biggest guns. The Dragon's command ship suddenly materialized in normal space directly above the Council fleet, its presence causing immediate panic among the attacking forces. Weapons that could crack moons began charging with visible energy buildup. And to the Council leadership, wherever you're cowering, your age of dominance is ending. You built your empire on the bones of the innocent. Now those bones cry out for justice, and we are their voice. Zara cut the transmission and immediately began the next phase of their plan. Through the quantum network, she started downloading massive amounts of tactical data. Fleet positions, supply routes, defensive installations, everything the Resistance would need to coordinate a galaxy-wide uprising. Dragon, I've got everything we need. Time to go. Agreed. The Council is bringing in planet-killer weapons. Even our shields won't stand up to that kind of firepower. Zara began the process of withdrawing from the station's systems, but not before leaving behind a special gift. The virus she planted would ensure that the Council's communications remained compromised for weeks, giving Resistance forces time to coordinate their efforts. The quantum shard phased out of normal space just as the first planet-killer weapon fired. Behind them, the Nexus station disappeared in a ball of contained antimatter, taking with it the Council's ability to coordinate their empire effectively. But the damage had been done. Their message had reached every world in Council space, and on hundreds of those worlds, beings were already beginning to act on Zara's words. Status report, the Dragon requested as they entered the quantum tunnel that would carry them back to Vithkala. Mission accomplished beyond our best projections, Zara replied, studying the data streams still flowing through their hijacked connection to the Council network. Uprising reports coming in from 47 different systems already. The Tauri Collective has declared independence. The mining colonies in the Vega sector have seized their orbital platforms, and most importantly, 3 different human resistance cells have successfully captured Council supply depots. Excellent. And our next move? Zara smiled, feeling the weight of destiny settling around her like a familiar cloak. Now we start building an alliance. The Council's strength comes from the belief that they're invincible. We've just proven that wrong. Time to show the galaxy what united resistance can accomplish. Through their neural link, she could feel the Dragon's savage satisfaction. After 3,000 years of waiting, the war for galactic freedom had finally begun. And humanity was leading the charge. The tunnel carried them back toward Vithkala, but Zara's attention was already focused on the future. There were alliances to forge, technologies to share, and a galaxy to liberate. The Council had made their first mistake when they threw a 13-year-old human girl to what they thought was certain death. They were about to learn just how costly that mistake would prove to be. 6 months after the Nexus station raid, the galaxy had transformed into something the Council's leadership could barely recognize. What had begun as isolated uprisings on distant worlds had evolved into a coordinated rebellion that spanned hundreds of star systems. The Resistance, as it had come to be known throughout Council space, operated with a level of tactical sophistication that suggested access to intelligence and technology far beyond what any rebel movement should possess. At the heart of this transformation stood Vithkala, no longer a hidden tomb of ancient glories, but a bustling center of revolutionary activity. The planet's cities hummed with constant activity as representatives from dozens of species worked alongside human refugees and Vithara automated systems to plan the next phases of galactic liberation. Zara stood on the observation deck of the Stellar Archive, watching ships arrive and depart through the quantum gate network with clockwork precision. In 6 months, she had grown from a 13-year-old girl into something that defied easy categorization, part human, part living weapon, part symbol of hope for billions of oppressed beings across the galaxy. The morning reports, announced Arya, the artificial intelligence that coordinated much of Vithkala's operations. The AI's voice carried the melodic tones that characterized Vithkala technology, but Zara had programmed it with distinctly human personality quirks. The Centauri Liberation Front has successfully captured the orbital shipyards above New Geneva. Human casualties were minimal, and they've seized approximately 200 Council vessels. Excellent news, Zara replied, studying the tactical display that showed the current status of resistance operations across the galaxy. Green dots indicated liberated systems, yellow showed active combat zones, and red marked territories still under firm Council control. The map looked increasingly favorable, though she knew the hardest fighting still lay ahead. Additional reports indicate that the Mordan hegemony has begun withdrawing forces from outer territories to reinforce their core worlds, Arya continued. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for a major offensive. The dragon materialized beside her, no longer confining itself to physical form when privacy allowed. After months of working together, they had developed a mental rapport that made formal communication unnecessary for anything but the most complex discussions. The Council grows desperate, it observed, studying the same tactical data. When tyrants begin consolidating their forces, it usually means they're preparing for a final gamble. Zara nodded, her enhanced strategic awareness already working through the implications. They've lost nearly 30% of their territory in 6 months. More importantly, they've lost the narrative. Worlds that were completely loyal 6 months ago are now openly questioning Council authority. The psychological impact of our message cannot be overstated. The dragon agreed. For the first time in their history, the Council appears vulnerable. That perception alone is worth more than 1,000 military victories. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The holographic display activated, showing the face of Commander Sarah Mitchell, the former Earth Defense Force officer who now coordinated human resistance cells throughout the galaxy. Zara, we've got a situation developing in the Sol system. Mitchell's voice carried barely controlled excitement. Council forces have been pulling back from Earth over the past week. Long-range sensors show massive fleet movements, but they're not heading toward any of the active combat zones. Where are they going? Zara asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Best estimate puts them on a direct course for the Vith-Kala system. Estimated arrival time is 72 hours. The dragon's mental presence suddenly intensified with predatory satisfaction. Finally, I had begun to wonder if they would ever work up the courage for a direct assault. Zara studied the data Mitchell was transmitting. Her enhanced analytical capabilities processing fleet compositions, probable weapons loadouts, and tactical formations. What she saw made her breath catch. Sarah, are you certain about these numbers? Confirmed by 3 independent sources. They're throwing everything they have at you. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier they can spare. We estimate total force strength at over 50,000 vessels, including their entire planet-killer arsenal. The dragon's laugh resonated through the observation deck. Magnificent. They intend to eliminate us in a single overwhelming strike. It is exactly what I would do in their position. Can we handle that kind of firepower? Zara asked, though she was already running calculations through the tactical systems of Vith-Kala's defense network. Child, my people spent 3,000 years preparing for exactly this scenario. The question is not whether we can handle their assault. The question is whether they can survive our response. Over the following 72 hours, Vith-Kala transformed from a center of rebellion into the most heavily fortified position in the galaxy. The orbital defense platforms that had remained hidden for millennia revealed themselves, taking positions throughout the star system that created overlapping fields of fire capable of engaging threats from any direction. Automated manufacturing facilities worked around the clock, producing weapons and defensive systems based on designs that made Council technology look primitive by comparison. But perhaps most importantly, word of the impending battle spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. On every liberated world, on every resistance-controlled station, beings who had never seen Vith-Kala prepared to watch what might be the decisive engagement of the war. They're making a statement, Zara realized as she studied the Council fleet's approach vector. This isn't just about destroying us. It's about demonstrating that resistance is still futile. They want every rebel in the galaxy to watch us die. The dragon settled beside her on the command deck of the stellar throne, its massive form radiating anticipation. Then we must ensure we provide them with a demonstration they will never forget. The Council fleet emerged from quantum tunnels at the edge of the Vith-Kala system with a precision that spoke of months of planning. Ship after ship materialized in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, carrier groups, and at the center of it all, 5 massive vessels that could only be planet killers. Incoming transmission, Arya announced. The lead ship is requesting to speak with the Pretender heir and the escaped beast. Put them through, Zara said, settling into the command throne that interfaced directly with her neural implants. The holographic display activated, showing the bridge of what appeared to be the largest dreadnought in the Council fleet. At its center stood a figure Zara recognized from the intelligence files. Supreme Admiral Kethvar of the Mordoon Hegemony, the Council's most experienced military commander. I am Kethvar, voice of the Council and executor of their will, the Admiral began, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. By order of the Galactic Council, you will surrender immediately and submit to judgment for crimes against galactic peace. I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Zara replied calmly. But I do have a counterproposal. The Admiral's expression shifted to one of barely controlled contempt. You are a child playing with forces beyond your comprehension. Surrender now, and your death will be swift. Actually, I'm a human being who's had enough of your species' arrogance, Zara corrected. And my proposal is this. Withdraw from this system immediately, and we'll let most of your ships escape destruction. Kethvar's laugh was harsh and dismissive. You face the combined might of the Council Armada, 50,000 ships, weapons capable of cracking worlds, soldiers who have never known defeat. What could you possibly possess that gives you such confidence? Zara smiled, the expression carrying no warmth at all. We have something your empire has never possessed, Admiral. We have hope backed by superior firepower. At her mental command, the hidden defenses of Vith Kala revealed themselves fully for the first time in 3 millennia. Orbital platforms the size of moons emerged from stealth fields. Weapon arrays that could manipulate gravity itself, powered up with visible energy discharges. Most impressive of all, space itself began to ripple as dimensional manipulation devices came online. The Council fleet's sensors went wild as they detected energy signatures that shouldn't have been possible. Several of the smaller ships actually broke formation, their commanders clearly uncertain how to respond to weapons that registered as having more destructive potential than their entire fleet combined. Impossible, Kethvar breathed, staring at readings that defied explanation. Those energy levels would require the output of multiple stars. The Vithara were always excellent engineers, the dragon interjected, its voice carrying across space with casual ease. Perhaps next time your people should be more thorough in their genocides. Through the quantum communication network that Zara still controlled, she could feel the shockwaves of this revelation spreading across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, beings who had thought the Vithara extinct were watching their technology reveal itself in all its terrible glory. Last chance, Admiral, Zara said. Withdraw your forces, and this ends without bloodshed. Kethvar's response was to order his entire fleet to open fire. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for centuries to come, assuming there would be historians left to study it. The Council fleet's initial barrage was impressive by the standards of any conventional engagement, enough firepower to sterilize dozens of worlds simultaneously. But it struck Vith Kala's defenses like waves against a seawall. The orbital platforms didn't just absorb the incoming energy. They converted it, feeding it into their own weapon systems and returning it amplified 100-fold. Gravity cannons tore through space, creating gravitational anomalies that twisted Council ships into impossible shapes. Dimensional weapons opened holes in reality itself, causing entire squadrons to simply vanish from existence. But perhaps most terrifying of all were the automated defense systems that had been waiting patiently for 3,000 years. Swarms of self-replicating interceptors emerged from hidden production facilities, each one capable of thinking and adapting faster than any organic crew. They moved through the Council fleet like a plague, disabling ships with surgical precision while avoiding unnecessary casualties. Status report, Zara requested, though she could see the battle's progress through her neural interface with the defense network. Council forces have lost approximately 30% of their total strength, Arya reported with mechanical precision. Remaining vessels are attempting to regroup around their planet-killer ships. Through the command throne sensors, Zara could see Admiral Kethvar desperately trying to coordinate a response to weapons and tactics his forces had never encountered. To his credit, he adapted quickly, focusing his remaining forces on concentrated strikes against individual defense platforms. He's learning, the dragon observed with what might have been approval. A pity he serves such unworthy masters. Should we end this? Zara asked, her hand hovering over the controls that would activate the system's most devastating weapons. Not yet. Let him exhaust his conventional options first. I want him to understand the full scope of his defeat. The Council fleet's planet killers finally opened fire, their antimatter weapons creating explosions that lit up space like newborn stars. Several of the smaller orbital platforms were actually destroyed, their defensive systems overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of energy directed against them. But for every platform destroyed, 2 more emerged from hidden positions. The Council had brought 50,000 ships to this battle. Vith Kala had 50,000 automated defense systems, each one equivalent to a small fleet in its own right. Enough, the dragon said finally. It is time to end this. Zara accessed the system's primary weapon, a device that had been built to crack the homeworlds of the Council's ancestors. Through the quantum targeting array, she painted each of the 5 planet-killer ships with a targeting.